We are already 11 years here in our country, and God has been blessing us with so many volunteers and so many ministries that we can share all throughout our community. But one thing that I truly love about our season of ministry here in our church is that we can go beyond our campus.
My name's Grace. I was in prison from 2003. When I got out last January 2019. And it was by the grace of God that I am here today, having the opportunity to serve and give back to the women I left behind in prison. And now, I'm called Pastor Grace.
Every month, we get to bring 10 to 12 of our members who have been equipped and trained to share and teach. And we teach them the gospel. We share with them how they can grow in their faith in Jesus Christ. We share with them how they have been gifted with their abilities and talents and gifts in order to make a difference in the lives, even while they are staying in the correctional institute.
On a weekly basis, they are gathering 1,400 women to hear the message that we have here in our church. And it is so amazing to see the potential of this ministry because they can now minister to the families outside the prison.
These ladies came in bitter, disillusioned, angry. But what the church has been doing for these ladies, they have all been replaced by love. And most of all, they were able to accept that their being in prison does not define them.
This is something God is calling our campus to be involved in. We have been able to visit the CIW in Davao and the Davao Penal Colony. Our vision is that we get to disciple and even bring Celebrate Recovery to all the correctional institutes and penal colonies in our country.
I alone cannot do it. And I know that God has been touching people's lives. We are all grateful for that.
Hey everybody, it's a great weekend. I am so excited about what God is doing in our church and even just to hear these stories of lives that are being changed in Santa Rosa through Grace and the campus there just brings so much joy to my heart. And God's using you in a very powerful way all over the world. So welcome today, all of our campuses, all of you who are joining us online, all of our extensions. God's got something great in store for you as we're gathered together today. Now, last weekend, we wrapped up our Dream Now Vision Initiative. We wrapped up our message series, and so many of you came forward and make your major commitments, your 3-year above and beyond generosity commitments of what you believe God is leading you to do, to give, to make a difference, and to join together with your church family to see the world impacted with the love of Jesus. There were multiple times for me throughout the weekend, last weekend, I was in tears, and so many moments of stories of young kids emptying out piggy banks and families coming together multi-generational way and parents and grandparents praying for their their grandkids and like seeing God do very powerful things. It was an act of faith that I believe God is inspired by, I believe God's encouraged by, and that God sees with great pleasure. And he wants to bless our church because of that generosity. You are such a generous church, and I'm very, very excited to be able to share with you the total of what you gave. Now, I'm not going to do that right now. You're going to have to come back for our celebration weekend, the weekend after Easter, where we will share that total. And there are some of you who weren't here last week. You still haven't made your commitment. I don't want you to miss out on what God does through us. And I don't want you to miss out on the celebration. So I want to encourage you to make your commitment before the 27th. You can do it today. Go to saddleback.com/dreamnow. Take you about 3 minutes and you can make that commitment of what you believe God is leading you into over these next 3 years. It's going to be a wonderful celebration. But before that is Easter weekend. And we don't want to skip over Easter because it's the biggest weekend of the year for us. It's the day that we call the Super Bowl of church, or if you're in South America, the World Cup of church, that we look forward to and anticipate all year what God's going to do. It's also a time of the year where many people who don't go to church are open to coming to church, which is a very significant opportunity for those of us who are followers of Jesus to spread the word, to invite somebody. There are friends, family members, coworkers, neighbors in our lives that one invitation could impact a whole generation. And so we're going to have a message that weekend, a celebration that weekend that really is helping people who are new to faith know how to have a relationship with God for the very first time. So what we want to do is put tools and resources in your hands. In fact, at all of our campuses, we have these little personal invites. I want to encourage you to grab a stack of these, to spread the word, invite 5 people, and let's come on Easter with great expectation of what God is going to do in our midst. I'm praying for you as you're sharing God's love with your friends and inviting people to join you. Now, today we're going to hear from Pastor Curt. Pastor Curt oversees all of our campuses. Many of you know him. He worked in student ministry for a really long period of time. He's one of our elders here at Saddleback. He's also got a very great message for you today. So let's welcome Pastor Curt Johnston as he comes to the stage.
Well, welcome. Welcome to Saddleback. So glad you're with us today. A big welcome to everybody at all of our campuses, all over Southern California, all over the globe. We are just thrilled that you're with us this weekend. Now, if you're newer to Saddleback, or maybe you've missed a few weeks, a couple weeks ago, you may have missed when Pastor Andy showed us this brand new tattoo that he had gotten. Maybe you were here and he showed us. I have a picture if you missed it. Pastor Andy showed us this tattoo. And I saw that tattoo, and in my mind, I'm going, man, that's like 8 ways of awesome in that tattoo. It's amazing. And I started thinking, gosh, I kind of want one. And so I asked my wife, hey, Rachel, would it be okay if I got a tattoo? And she said yes. And so I want to reveal to you my new tattoo. It's right here. Just soak that in there. Quite proud of it. Quite proud of it. Sorry, Andy. I'll either get fired or promoted. I'm not sure which after that. Not too long ago, I heard a story about a conflict that a dad was having with his teenage son. Now, as long as there have been dads and teenage sons, there have been conflicts, right? And this was nothing new, but they were having a specific conflict because the son was about to turn 16, and he had been hinting and hoping, and in some ways sort of promised that when he turned 16, he would be given a car for his birthday. And so as his 16th birthday approached, he began to remind his dad, hey, Dad, I'm about to turn 16. I'm expecting my car. But the dad had one issue, kind of one hang up, and it was that his son had really long hair. And so he started saying to his son, look, until you cut your hair, I'm not going to get you a car. And the son felt that was super unfair. Dad, I don't understand. What's my hair have to do with my responsibility, and why can't I have a car? And his dad said, son, it just bothers me. It looks scraggly. And until you cut your hair, I'm not going to be able to give you a car. And so the son was just racking his brain going, how can I make my case? And he had this aha moment. The light bulb went off, and he went to his dad. He said, Dad, I've been thinking about this. You should give me a car despite my long hair. And his dad said, well, why? And the son said, well, for one, Jesus had long hair. And his dad said, you're right. And he walked everywhere he went. If you've ever done much looking into the life and ministry of Jesus, as you read the Gospels, there are things that jump off the page at you as you read. One, Jesus truly did walk everywhere he went. He walked a lot. Number two, what you notice is as Jesus walked, he encountered so many different types of people. He encountered religious leaders. He encountered outcasts. He encountered people who were sick, paralyzed, demon-possessed. People who were high status in society and people who were the lowest of low in culture. And time after time after time after time, as Jesus was walking through life and people would come into his path, it seems as if he never wasted an interaction. It's like he never wasted a moment with somebody who showed up in his path. He healed the sick. He called out hypocrisy. He encouraged people who were doing it the right way. Every time Jesus interacted with somebody, their lives were changed, and often their eternal trajectory was changed. It was different because they had an interaction with Jesus. They showed up in his path as he walked, and they were never the same. I want to read a couple passages. One, in the book of Matthew, this is sort of a summary. It kind of summarizes all of this interaction that Jesus had. It almost summarizes his ministry in just a few short verses. It says this in Matthew 4:23 through 25. Jesus traveled throughout the region of Galilee, teaching in the synagogues and announcing the good news about the kingdom. And he healed every kind of disease and illness. News about him spread as far as Syria, and people soon began bringing to him all who were sick. And whatever their sickness or disease, or if they were demon-possessed or epileptic or paralyzed, he healed them all. Large crowds followed him wherever he went. People from Galilee, the 10 towns, Jerusalem, from all over Judea, and from east of the Jordan River. Later on in the book of the Gospel of John, the last verse in the Gospel of John says something really interesting. I want to read what the very last verse in the last Gospel, as it summarizes the ministry of Jesus. It says this: Jesus also did many other things. If they were all written down, I suppose the whole world could not contain the books that would be written. You see, Jesus never wasted a moment. He never wasted an interaction. According to John, all the books ever written could not contain the accounts of the interactions and the impact and the changed lives because of Jesus Christ. Jesus just walked differently. And he paid attention and he noticed when people were in his path. Years ago, long time ago, when I was just learning how to walk, my parents, I don't remember this because I was 1 year old or so, my parents were very proud of the fact that I was in a commercial when I was a little baby. They would tell just about everybody, you know, my son was in a commercial, you know, my son was in a commercial, Curt was in a commercial when he was a little kid. And I never saw it, but apparently it was a picture of these hands, and these hands released me, and I kind of waddled across the room, and another set of hands caught me. And you know, it said, this moment of learning is brought to you by the people of General Pacific, or some kind of like public service type commercial. This moment of learning was just a picture of me learning to walk. I've never seen the commercial. I believe my parents. I actually managed, I was scrounging around and going through my parents' stuff. I found a picture, like a still shot from the day of the commercial shoot of me learning to walk. All these years later, 59 years old, I have a confession to make. I'm still learning to walk. I'm still learning to walk. You see, I want to walk the way Jesus walked. I want to walk in such a way that when people come into my path and we interact, that their lives are better for it. Not only that their lives are better for it, but maybe their lives are changed. Maybe the trajectory, the entire trajectory of their eternity is changed because of the way I'm choosing to walk. I've been learning to walk ever since I was a year old. I'm still learning. My hunch is you are too. And my hunch is we all will have this continuous learning to walk more and more like Jesus. And so today, what I want to do is I want to spend just a few moments teaching us to walk together. Like, how might we learn to walk? Learning to walk on one hand seems so easy. It's just you put one foot in front of the other. It's a step-by-step process, and yet it's so hard. It's so hard for those of us who follow Jesus to really walk in the way he walked. Now, if you're here today and you're exploring Christianity, maybe you're brand new to faith, or maybe you're just checking church out, this is a little bit of insider information for you. Because you might have kind of been going through life thinking, I don't know about these Christians, they're kind of weird. I would reply by saying, I hope so. I hope we're a little bit weird. I hope we're weirdly attentive to the world around us. I hope we walk differently. I hope we treat people. I hope when people come into our path, we are walking and interacting in such a way that makes a difference. And so if you're checking out faith, I'm kind of putting the rest of us on notice tonight, saying one of the ways that the world knows we're followers of Jesus is the way we walk. We should walk a little bit differently. So how do we walk? Let me give you today 3 steps in this learning to walk journey. Step number 1 when we're learning to walk is simply this: pray for an opportunity. Pray for an opportunity. 2 different types of prayers in the world. The most popular prayer is simply this prayer: God bless me. That's a popular prayer. I pray that prayer all the time, every day. God bless me. Bless my marriage. Bless my kids. Bless my presentation. Bless my efforts. Bless my job. Bless me. Basically what I'm saying is, God, just make my life awesome. Just make everything about Curt's world amazing. I pray that prayer all the time. You might as well pray something very similar. God bless me. It's the world's most popular prayer. There is a very dangerous prayer. It's only one word different. Instead of praying, God bless me, the dangerous prayer is, God, use me. Use me. God, would you use me to make a difference in the world? Here's why that prayer is so dangerous. Because I promise you, if you pray, God use me, God will answer in the affirmative. He will say affirmative, yes. You asked for it, you got it. So don't pray, God use me, if you're not willing for God to say, okay, you asked for it, I'm going to give you an opportunity. You want to walk like Jesus? I'm going to put some people in your path. But if we want to walk like Jesus, the first thing we have to begin to do is we have to be willing to pray for opportunities. Well, how do you do that? Well, a couple ways is you slow down, eyes up, and ears open. Slow down, eyes up, and ears open. A buddy of mine knew that I was going to teach on this topic, and he recommended a book. I didn't even get to read the book, but the title was intriguing. It's about Jesus, and the title of the book is 3 Mile an Hour God. 3 Mile an Hour God. In other words, Jesus walked slowly through life. He slowed down, he had his eyes up, and he had his ears open to the needs of the world. We live in a fast-paced world, don't we? I love it. I gotta admit, I love fast-paced. I love growing up when I did. I love living life how we live it. Maybe the biggest downside is as we go through life this fast, it's really hard to slow down, keep our eyes up, and keep our ears open to the world around us. Because we're just so caught up in our own heads. We're so caught up in our own interests. But if we begin to pray for opportunities, God begins to give those to us. Now, the passage I read a minute ago was a summary of the ministry of Jesus. I want to like focus in for a minute and take a closer look at a specific example. It says this in the book of, oh my goodness, I lost my, boop, boop, boop. On my notes, I cut off this is a story in the Gospels. I don't even know where I'm at right here. But it's when Jesus interacted with Zacchaeus. You guys maybe have heard the story. It's in the Gospels. And it says this. It's a story about Jesus, and he's walking through town. It says this. Jesus entered Jericho, and he made his way through the town. There was a man named there Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector in the region, and he had become very rich. He tried to get a good look at Jesus, but he was too short to see over the crowd. I feel your pain. I feel your pain, little man. So he ran ahead and he climbed a sycamore fig tree beside the road, for Jesus was going to pass that way. When Jesus came by, he looked up at Zacchaeus and called him by name. Zacchaeus, he said, quick, come down. I must be a guest in your home today. Zacchaeus quickly climbed down and took Jesus to his house in great excitement and joy. But the people were displeased. He has gone to be the guest of a notorious sinner, they grumbled. You see, this is just a closer look at the type of interactions that Jesus had time and time and time again. And when you think about this scene, you begin to go, oh, there's a couple of steps here that Jesus was modeling to us in how we learn to walk. If the first step is pray for opportunities, another step is to simply pay attention. You pray for opportunities, and then as you live life, you begin to pay attention. And you pay attention, like I just talked about, by slowing down, having your eyes up, and having your ears open. I love this example and passage because this was when Jesus was really at the height of his popularity. The reason the crowds were so big is because by this time in his ministry, Jesus had been building a reputation. For almost 3 years at this point, he had been doing all the things that we've been talking about and reading about. All the stuff that all the books in the world couldn't even contain. That's the things that he had been doing now for over 3 years-ish. And so his popularity is massive. He's actually walking on his way to Jerusalem, to enter Jerusalem in what we would traditionally grow to call on Palm Sunday. And if you know anything about Palm Sunday, he was so popular that they laid palm branches down for him to walk into the city as royalty. And so just a few days earlier, he's walking through Jericho, and the crowds are huge. And Zacchaeus wants to see this man he's heard so much about. He climbs up a tree. Think about everything going on in Jesus' life at that moment. People are trying to get his attention. They're probably reaching out and touching him. He's celebrity status. It's probably very loud. And yet, Jesus is paying enough attention to his surroundings to notice that up in this tree is a tax collector. One of the reasons scholars say, not only because he was short, but one of the reasons he climbed the tree was because he was constantly kind of on the lookout for safe havens, because tax collectors were despised. They were cheats. They ripped people off, and so he kind of, yeah, I want to see Jesus, but I also want to be alone up here where it's just a little bit safer from the crowd. And Jesus recognized them, paid attention. We need to pay attention as we walk. A few years ago, me and some buddies were down in San Diego, and we went out to coffee, and we were walking, and as we were walking, I wasn't paying attention at all, and I stepped on something, and my leg went like this. I almost fell. I slipped so aggressively, and I kid you not, I turned around to see what I had slipped on, and it was a banana peel. I slipped. Here, I knew you wouldn't believe it. I took a picture. There I am. We can zoom in. Zoom in. There it is, right there. I literally slipped that little 2 foot slide is how far the banana peel, it happens. It doesn't only happen in cartoons. Like I was shocked that I could actually slip on a banana peel. Who knew? But you know what? I slipped on the banana peel because I wasn't paying attention. When you're not paying attention, bad things can happen. But oh, the good that can happen when we pay attention to the people in our path. Jesus was paying attention. He saw Zacchaeus, and Zacchaeus' life was never the same again. Lives can be changed. Eternities made different when we pay attention. I'm a follower of Jesus today because when I was a teenager, somebody paid attention. When I was a junior in high school, I grew up in a Christian home, but I really wanted nothing to do with Jesus. And from the time I was in 8th grade on, we went to a tiny little church, a teeny tiny little church in Whittier, California. And when I was in 8th grade, my parents said, and I don't know in hindsight if this is the right parenting tactic or not, they said, Curt, you get to decide if you want to go to church or not. It's up to you. You're becoming a young man, and we're not going to force you to go to church. It's up to you. And so I decided, well, if you're giving me a choice, I choose not to go to church. Thank you for that freedom. Almost every scar in my life, almost every pain point, almost every piece of baggage that I still carry happened from 8th grade until my junior year in high school when somebody paid attention to me because I was in their path. I got invited to summer camp from a much bigger youth group in town. And their summer camp was at San Onofre Beach, at the group camp at San Onofre Beach. And I had just started developing this sort of interest and enjoyment and love for surfing. And so my buddy said, hey, why don't you come with me to summer camp? It's at the beach. We just surf all day. That's all we do. We wake up, we have devotion around the fire pit. We go, we surf all day. We come back. We sing songs. We eat food, go to sleep. We do the same thing for a week. And I was like, that sounds unbelievable. So I said, I'm in. I'll go. About 2 days before camp, he calls me and says, hey, Curt, I've decided I'm not going to go. I'm not going to go. So the guy who invited me bails. I know nobody else. I've never even visited this church. I decided to go anyway. And so I get on this bus. I don't know anybody. They drive us down to San Onofre. Almost nobody talks to me. I'm all by myself. They unload and they say, hey, you're welcome to go down to the beach. It was back in the 80s where youth groups didn't really pay that much attention to kids. Or, there's like, go to the beach and we'll see you later kind of thing. Like, oh, this is amazing. So I went down the beach and I didn't know anybody. So I thought, well, kind of like the safest place is just to go be by myself. That way I'm not embarrassed for not fitting in. And so I paddled out and I was surfing by myself for about a half hour. And all of a sudden, this guy who was about a year older than me paddles over and he says, hey, are you with us? And I said, I don't know. I don't know if I'm with you. Who are you? He said, hey, my name's Chris, and I'm part of the summer camp of the church. Are you here with the church? I said, I am. Oh, I'm Curt. And we shook hands and we hung out for a while. He said, hey, why don't you hang out with me? You don't know anybody? I said, no, my buddy invited me, then he left. And he said, why don't you hang out? And so Chris, who I later learned was like the most popular guy in the entire youth group, he's out there surfing as I show up in his path. He's paying attention. He's paying attention. Hey, why don't you hang out with me? I'll introduce you to everybody. I think you'll have a good week. And I didn't say yes to Jesus that week, but at the end of the week, he said, we do church every Wednesday night. What if you came on a Wednesday night? All right. And so I started going to youth group on Wednesday nights, and within about a month, I said yes to Jesus. And it was all because a teenage guy with a whole world of his own concerns, was paying attention to the people that God put in his path. He slowed down. He had his eyes up. He had his ears open. He was paying attention. So if we want to learn to walk, if we want to learn to walk the way Jesus walked, we need to pray for opportunities. We need to pay attention. And then a third step, and we see this in the same story that Jesus did with Zacchaeus. Step number 3 is we need to put in the effort. We need to put in the effort. You see, Jesus sees Zacchaeus, and he could have said in that moment, hey, Zacchaeus, I see you. Here's a tip. Quit being so jerky. Be nicer. And he could have just kept walking, right? He paid attention. He could have just paid attention, seen Zacchaeus, challenged him, and been on his way. But instead, with everything going on in Jesus' life, think about this. Jesus knows what's coming in the next several days. He knows where this whole journey ends. He's got a lot on his mind. But he not only pays attention, he puts in the effort. He says, hey, Zacchaeus, come down. I want to go to your house and spend time with you. So he had to put in the effort to tell his disciples, hey, we're going to divert from the plan. We're going to walk further off course. We're going to hang out with somebody that nobody likes. But we're going to put that effort in because Zacchaeus' life is worth it. And as a result, Zacchaeus surrenders his life to Christ. The trajectory of Zacchaeus' life is never the same because Jesus put in a little extra effort. You see, it's one thing to pray for opportunities, to pay attention. It's another thing to put in the effort. I have a bumper sticker on my truck. I think we have a picture of this bumper sticker on my truck. I hope something good happens to you today. I am so proud of that bumper sticker. Isn't it nice? It's such a nice bumper sticker. In fact, probably once a week, somebody will pull up next to me and like, hey, roll down your window. I roll down my window. I love your bumper sticker. Thanks for making me feel good. I'll be in a restaurant and somebody will say, hey, I saw you get out of the truck. Is that your truck? Yeah. That bumper sticker's one. Hey, thank you for that. I hope something good happens to you today. What it doesn't say is, I will help something good happen to you today. There's a difference, isn't there? Am I going to hope people's lives are better? Or am I willing to put in the effort and help people's lives be better? We can hope for anything. God used me. He's going to say yes. Pay attention. You're going to notice. And then the question becomes, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? Jesus never missed an opportunity. Jesus never wasted an interaction. How different might the world be? How different might the cities that our campuses are located in, all across Orange County, all across the globe, how different might they be if Saddleback Church was filled with men and women who prayed for opportunities, who paid attention, and then when people cross our paths, we actually put in the effort to tell them about the good news of Jesus, to slow down long enough to interact and learn a little bit about their story, to see, God, how might you use me for something good to happen instead of me just hoping something good happens. You see, when we put in the effort, lives can be changed. I'm in ministry today because somebody put in a little extra effort when I crossed their path. I was a junior in college. I was going to Vanguard. It was Southern California College at the time. And I was taking a class. I'm not a great scholar. And so, like, my way of going through class was, what's the shortest distance between here and graduation day? That was my strategy. Like, when I graduated from college, I'm not happy to admit this, but I will. This is a safe place. I had books that were still in the shrink wrap. like entire textbooks that were still shrink. I had never opened the book, and somehow I got through college. Well, I had signed up for a class. The title of this course was Camp Leadership. An entire semester dedicated to learning how to run a camp. Section 1, roasting marshmallows. It was like, what in the world? So I saw it and I thought, I'm in. Camp leadership, I want that class. So I go to this class, we're about 3 weeks in, and one day I am walking, there was literally like this little path in between the different classes, and I'm walking down this path, and my professor, Wayne Tesh and I, on the same path, our paths cross. He's paying attention, and he puts in some effort. He says, hey, Curt, I've been thinking about you. I have an idea, okay? He said, hey, I know what church you go to. It was the same church that I had gone to summer camp with. He said, I know that church. It's an awesome church. You have a church bus. You have a gymnasium. He said, you could do something that the church I attend does every summer. Okay, well, what's that? He said, you could run a 10-week day camp for junior high kids. And I was like, that's the last thing I want to do. A 10-week day camp for junior high kids. He says, yes, you can put what we're learning in action. And in that moment, I'm not book smart, but gosh, am I ever street smart. I saw an opportunity. I said, oh, wait, Mr. Tesh, you're asking me to spend the summer running a camp. He goes, yeah. All summer, yep. To lead a camp, yes. He's like, okay, where's this going? I said, so I'm in your class, camp leadership. You're asking me to lead a camp. He goes, yeah. I said, let's make a deal. If we shake hands right here, I will agree to run, if I can get permission from my pastor, I'll run a 10-week day camp for junior hires. But we shake hands right here, I get an A in the class. I said, here's the deal. I'll come to class because I want to learn. I kind of got to learn how to do what we're agreeing I'm going to do in a few months. I'll come to class. I'll participate. And I said this, I won't take a test. I won't write a paper. I won't do any projects. But I'll learn because I'm going to do what you're teaching us to do. And I said, Mr. Tesh, how many other students in our class do you think are going to lead camps this summer? And he said, well, probably not too many. I said, well, then let's make a deal. And he goes, okay, you got it. We shook hands. Went through the rest of class. That summer, I spent 10 weeks. Me and Chris, who was the young man who had paddled over on his surfboard and invited me to be a part of the youth group. He and I together spent 10 weeks that summer driving a busload of junior high kids all over LA County, touring Angel Stadium, going down to SeaWorld, doing it was amazing. And during that time, I just started thinking, wow, I like this. I think I could do more of this. And at the end of the summer, our pastor came to me and said, hey, Curt, man, we have a junior high group, but we've never seen anything like this. Would you consider being our part-time junior high pastor? And so I said yes to that, and I backed off. It took me about 4 years to finish my senior year of college because I was just in love with ministry. I'm in ministry today. See, my life's trajectory has been radically changed at least 2 times because people refused to miss an interaction. They were paying attention and they were putting in the effort. I'm a follower of Jesus because Chris paid attention. I'm in ministry because Wayne Tesh put in some effort. A little hindsight, several years later, our college almost lost their accreditation. And it might have something to do with back alley deals for grades. I don't really know the details of how that all, but when you're shaking hands for A's in the alleys of the college, it probably somebody catches wind of that. But my friends, how might lives be different? How might lives change if you and I, if we just committed to go through life together, praying for opportunities, paying attention, putting in the effort. If we just committed, Saddleback Church, man, we're not perfect, but we're gonna walk like Jesus. We're gonna walk like Jesus. And just like I'm sure if I did have that imagery, and we've all seen it, of when a little baby is learning to walk, they waddle, they fall, they get back up, they have to have help, they have to have encouragement, but eventually they figure it out. What if we just collectively said, let's be like that? Let's be those kinds of Christians. You know, we're gonna waddle, we're gonna stumble, we're gonna fall, somebody's got to pick us up, we're gonna have to cheer each other on, but eventually if we don't give up, we're gonna figure this thing out. And if we pray for opportunities, if we pay attention, if we put in the effort, the lives of people, the trajectories of people's eternity can be changed. We have a great opportunity to practice. We have a great opportunity to practice because Easter is just around the corner. And we have these Easter invites. And we really do hope that you'll take a handful of these. I think they're even bunched up in little packs of 5. You can take 1 pack, you can take a few packs. And my hope is that this upcoming week, as we get ready for Easter, Palm Sunday, that you would begin to take a chance and actually pray, God, would you give me an opportunity to talk to somebody about your son, Jesus? Would you give me an opportunity? He's gonna say yes. And when you do, would you give me the boldness and the courage to put in the effort, to make the ask, to make the invite? It might mean I have to sit in a different part of the auditorium because I bring a guest or two. It might mean I have to give up going to hang out with my friends right after Easter. I might be a little bit later to Easter dinner because I'm going to answer a few questions in the car ride home. That's going to take some effort. But there's no better message. There's nothing else worth investing in than the life-changing, hope-giving message of Jesus Christ. I have on your handouts or on your notes, there's a question for this week. And the question is simply this: who has God placed in my path? Who has God placed in my path? I hope this week, when he does place someone in your path, you'll put in the effort. Let's pray together. Jesus, thank you so much for your love. Jesus, thank you for the way that you put people in our paths. And Father, thank you that for a whole lot of us in this room, you put us in the path of others, and our lives have never been the same. Jesus, I pray this week, as we head into Easter season, Father, that we would learn to walk more and more like you. In your name we pray. Amen.